PodKit episode 61. PHP is great on Saturday, March 216th, 2020. Saturday, October 3rd, 2020. And now, it's Jekyll.
This episode of PodKit is hosted by Brandon Johnson, Brian Mitchell, and Ryan Rempersad. This episode has show notes at thenexus.tv/PK61.
It's perfect.
Happy October.
Hey,
It's October already.
it's October 3rd. Can you believe that?
Seems that way.
I mean, it's only been a month since we did this last.
Yeah, March has been a long year. That's for sure.
I think are we March 217th today, I believe?
I don't know. Like, how do I find out?
I've got a method. You've got a method. Let's see if we agree.
COVIDstandardtime.com. It's Saturday, March 216th today.
According to Wolfram Alpha, it is also March 216th.
Incredible.
It's starting to feel like March again. It's a little bit cooler. There's a frost warning, or frost advisory tonight. Anyway, we've been talking about March at the beginning of every show, I feel, for the last 7 months.
Well, since March, really.
Since March.
So what happens in October?
Halloween.
Well, the latest thing has been Hacktoberfest, but there's been some talk about Hacktoberfest as well. Okay, so let's back up. What is Hacktoberfest? Who wants to describe it?
The way I think about it is it's a kind of a membership drive for open source software. You can kind of think of it for all those NPR fans out there.
I was thinking TPT.
TPT, if that's your
hyperlocal.
If that's your preferred,
That stands for Twin Cities Public Television.
Yeah, it used to be called KTCA. Fun fact for those of you like me who are 80 years old and remember that.
Or on one side of the river.
Or on one side of the river. Anywho, basically it's a special drive for folks to contribute to open source software, contribute their code, their time, their documentation skills. And in the past, it's, basically what would happen is you'd fill out, I think it's 5 pull requests.
4.
And when they get merged, 4? It's 4? Okay, well, it's an off by 1 error. I'll allow it.
It happens to the best of us, yeah.
Yeah, yours were 0 indexed, that's all.
Totally.
Oh, no, the 5th one's a stretch goal.
Oh, there you go. And then in return, you get a sticker, some stickers, a t-shirt, stuff like that. And we've done like Hacktoberfest events at JSMN before with varying degrees of success. But, really the goal is to just get people engaged in maintaining and improving open source software. Is that fair to say? I feel like that's fair to say.
Yeah, it's mostly put on by DigitalOcean with a few other co-sponsors. DigitalOcean hosts the website for it, and it's really a big marketing event for them. I was seeing some tweets. Someone was saying it's marketing. They can't really do a lot of direct sales and things, but it hopefully breaks even at least a little bit for them. Clearly, it's the 7th year, so something's worked out. The numbers in the last few years have really gone up over time. Anyway, the reason we're talking about it is because it is during the month of October, but there's been quite a lot of spam this year. As I understand it, there were a couple of YouTube videos that were really pushing for creating, I think in even some cases, when translated to English, it was something in like encouraging spamming pull requests so people could get the shirt. So DigitalOcean has released an update yesterday, I think, that it has to be opt-in per repo versus opt-out. So for a pull request account, it needs to be on a repository that has added the Hacktoberfest topic to that repository. Now, I think this will definitely cut down on all the spam that's going on once people realize it. But at the same time, I think the amount of meaningful contributions will drop as well because repos have to opt into it. So big popular projects that maybe were getting a lot of spam may not put that Hacktoberfest topic on anymore to try to get rid of the spam, but they may not get contributions as well. Now, you could argue that if you want to contribute, you should just do it anyway. You just shouldn't do it for the shirt, but it's nice when those both can align. But so that's kind of what's happened. And there's been a Twitter account that highlighted a bunch of this called Shittoberfest. And there's quite a lot of screenshots and things in there. So that might be worth taking a swing by and seeing what's happening too. But
so have either of you ever actually participated in this thing?
I did last year and the year before. This is where I contributed to D3 time format is the most notable thing. And I added a couple of docs to Oh My Z Shell documented a couple of their plugins that had no docs at the time. So those are kind of the biggest contributions I've done. I think a few PRs against Weatherbot, my Twitter bot, as well as I am building a Secret Santa generator app right now, and that's one PR from like technically September 30th is counting as my first pull request, but that might be where some more of mine this year are coming from, but which I feel a little guilty about because it's my own repository, but
you're following the spirit of it.
yeah, it's still open source. Now I would be working on this anyway, so I don't know, you can judge the value there, but so now it's opt-in, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I had done some reading on this too. Apparently you can also have them plant a tree instead of getting a shirt.
Yeah, that's a nice touch. I don't know, that might be new this year.
I don't need any more junky t-shirts. I would much prefer to have another tree.
And it's probably a lot cheaper for them to plant a tree than make a shirt.
Yeah. So everybody should request a tree be planted instead. Way better.
That makes a lot of sense.
So the common pull request or issue name has been improved docs. And so there's kind of been some jokes around filtering out issues for improved docs. I think someone had some GitHub search results that's like 300,000 pull requests were called improved docs or had it in their name.
Yeah, I saw some that were definitely like non-contribution contributions, stuff like changing the README to say, here's how you contribute to this awesome project, as opposed to saying, here's how you contribute to this project.
Yeah, that's useless.
Just added the word awesome.
Or changing like CSS from 92 pixels to 93 pixels. I'm seeing a screenshot here.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Little things like that.
So I had also, I think when this, kind of when the spam kind of happened, it also made it to the Orange site. And, some people came up with some alternative ideas, like instead of, or in addition to, having that opt-in marker, the topic, you could have it so that only accounts that existed before, some date are eligible, and or only issues that existed before some date are eligible, and they actually have to be based on real issues and not just arbitrary PRs. So like there could be in the future many different ways to participate, maybe different tiers of participation. So like if you make an arbitrary useless PR, like nope, doesn't count, make a real issue.
Yeah, I would say it's a fine line though, because you want to encourage new people to get involved and to get involved in not just open source in general, but in specific projects and things. And so
yeah, it is a fine line, as you say. And as we've said on the network here, we want pros, not bros. So nobody wants those.
Yeah. You don't want to like judge by lines of code changed, but I wonder if that would at least get rid of some of this really low bar spam. But at the same time, if you require it to be a percentage of the file or at least 50 lines of code changed in a PR, then you're just asking for crazy formatted code that is really a one-liner that's been stretched.
Well, no, so what you do is you make a bot that just prettiers things that aren't prettiered already, and that's the PR.
Oh no. Run prettier.
Oh no.
Run prettier.
That's perfect.
I mean, there's maybe some value in that.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for a bot that will enforce prettier, but I don't think that's a helpful thing for people. Like, I know some people don't like prettier for some reason, and those people are welcome to believe whatever they want. But
the prettier's the chosen one, so
yeah, I mean, the thing is, I've just fully given in because, like, whatever. And for those people, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'd love to take, if somebody took something that's useful to them and otherwise isn't being maintained and ran prettier on it, I'd probably accept it if it was something that I made. I don't know. But the other side to it is most of the stuff I make nowadays, I do set up prettier.
Right. Oh, well, okay, so we're going to run prettier 2 on all of the stuff. There you go.
Oof.
Because that'll mess with it.
Uh-oh.
Every new version of prettier.
Jeez.
Prettier 2.1 changed a couple things around dynamic imports for me.
Oh, no. Yeah, so that's a cool one. What else do we have here on the list, Brian?
All right. Next up, we have a link to a blog post about Eleventy that you found, Ryan.
Yes.
On the Mozilla Hacks blog, I believe it is a self-referential post, maybe.
Maybe. I had never read this blog before in my life, so that was interesting. So I don't know if I found this on the Orange site or if I just happened to stumble upon it with Stumble Upon.
Hey.
I'm not sure if I use Twitter or not. I don't know. Something about a computer. So what I thought was interesting here is they actually tried or looked at different options. So I think they were using Jekyll for a long time here, and
And we all know I love Jekyll.
right, and so everybody is a big fan of Jekyll, and it's very Ruby based, and it's kind of the front matter standard, and that's good. And so as part of their alternative options list here, they looked at Hugo, which is written in Go. They looked at Gatsby, which is written in questionable JavaScript, and they looked at Eleventy something, I don't know,
Eleventy,
and that was written in JavaScript. And some of the things that they wanted to move away from in Jekyll were they wanted better build performance, so the builds could take up to 10 minutes, which is pretty crazy. Now I don't know how many posts they have here on this blog and what the complexity level is, but 10 minutes is a long time, especially on a local build. If that's a server build, maybe it's not so bad. Local changes should be pretty fast, so you want local refresh, JavaScript based, and that was actually my reason for moving away from Hugo. Even though it was super fast, it was really hard to extend because you can't, it's compiled already, you can't do anything. And then the last one they had here is flexible enough to, meet the demands of more futuristic documentation. And I can totally see that. So they eventually made their decision. And what's the decision?
Eleventy.
Yay!
Ew.
And they also like that it provided a Liquid.js component.
I didn't know Liquid.js was a thing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so they can still use their old formatting system, which is nice. But it's actually not that simple. So they actually went through, this pretty comprehensive post here about how they actually made that migration sort of, in pieces, with a lot of scripting and coding on the outside of the Eleventy portions. And I think a lot of that has to do with like how, Jekyll in the old days maybe made some styles and some JavaScript components, and how to actually get those to all work properly with regards to like caching and updates and everything. It's just a cool read, and it's nice to see that there's non-hype tools being used out there.
Yeah, I've been watching Eleventy for not a year. I don't know, whenever I first heard about it, sometime in the last year though. I've been eyeing it for rewriting the JavaScript.mn.com website, which is on Gatsby. But it really doesn't need to be. It's like just a couple of pages. So I think it would be perfect for something like this and a good reason to try something out. My own site runs in Jekyll, and it's nice to use it built into GitHub Pages because that's where it's hosted and things, and it auto deploys. I don't have to check in the compiled versions of anything. However, my site does have some more complicated stuff. I have a Svelte component. I'm sprinkling of JavaScript here and there. So I already do have some like compiled steps that are outside of GitHub Pages deploys. So in that sense, it would just be easier to have a single tool that does it. Like I have a rake file that's in the Ruby world of like NPM scripts kind of a thing, how I understand it at least. I'm sure that Ruby developers are cringing right now. But so I have some stuff done through NPM scripts and some through a rake file. My like Travis CI build runs some weird stuff, but it would just be nice to consolidate it. I'm definitely more into JavaScript now than I was when I started that site. So something like Eleventy would make sense, and I can keep one dependency on Node, and then I could just push a compiled site up to a GitHub Pages branch or something like that. So I think eventually I'd like to do that. I do have quite a few things built out with Liquid, so having Liquid.js around is okay. At the same time, I feel like I would just rewrite everything or get rid of Liquid stuff and run it in its own. Because Liquid works. I'm not like, it's nice to have, but it's not like I'm not super attached to it. And in all reality, I would prefer just writing a little bit of JavaScript to do a lot of this stuff. So I think that's a lot more composable. And GitHub Pages as well is limited to whatever set of plugins are in their GitHub Pages gem. And so it's a good collection of default things, but there are, any customization you can't really do, or you have to build your own weird Liquid template that you're using Liquid templates for writing code. And it's not elegant, to say the least. I believe it's like probably a Turing complete templating language, but that isn't how you want to be writing code if you can help it.
It could be worse.
True. So I'm eyeing Eleventy to eventually rewrite my site, but stuff like this in this site is kind of the exact walkthrough that I would be interested in, where you have live reloading on changing anything and bundling and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, for sure.
I will save this for later. That's for sure.
I looked at Eleventy last weekend, just for fun, see if I should move over, and I came to the conclusion it doesn't look like it's ready for me. I really like using React and Friends in my like for everything if I can, I guess. And it doesn't seem like Eleventy has a JSX React flavored system yet. So I guess I'll just keep waiting.
Yeah, MDX is something I'd be interested in looking at. And MDX is like a Markdown JSX mix kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think there are Gatsby plugins for it and some other stuff, but I don't know if it's in Eleventy. And so so you can write Markdown files, but have some interaction inside, which is great for little mini widgets or code examples if you're writing about some code thing.
Yep, for sure.
So that's something I would definitely be interested in. And even like weird, some custom templates that would be good for. I do have some stuff now that is... my site is a mix of Markdown files as well as HTML files. It'd be nice to move most of it over to just Markdown, but there's some, like my homepage and stuff has more custom things.
Right.
So that's clearly going to be HTML.
Yep.
But I'm, trying to have data files and things. Yeah. Switching from YAML to JSON. That's fine. Probably better.
That'll be one transform. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also have that same issue where like the fancy parts of my site aren't plain Markdown, and so then I need to have that in data and then have manipulables. So someday we'll see. Now speaking of this reminds me of the decision that I also saw on that Orange website, and it was a decision from the W3C and the like design agency that they're working with to not choose WordPress. And I thought this was interesting because there's this 3-letter acronym. It's all the rage these days. What's it called? It's the Gatsby thing.
Oh, Jamstack.
Yeah, Jamstack. That's what it's called. It's so futuristic that I can't even remember it.
People just want to spread the Jamstack over everything.
Like butter or
Right.
something.
No, like jam. Like jam.
Oh.
That's the point. On toast.
Okay. Oh, I get it. Like butter, like jam. And so I what's funny here is one of the reasons that this design team kind of chose not to use WordPress is because of Gutenberg. And I know that many people here on this show don't do WordPress, and I agree with you. But the Gutenberg is the new editor thing in WordPress.
That's the block thing, right?
Yeah, it's the block thing. And so the thing around the block thing is Gutenberg. And it's apparently it's causing trouble and it's complicated. And I haven't been WordPressing for many years now, so I don't totally understand it either. But basically they're saying, well, because you can block things and you use little widgets to build more stuff, and because even building those widgets on the back end, like how do you inject code into React so that it can be extensible, and like maybe WordPress totally hasn't figured that out yet. So
dangerously set inner HTML,
I guess, or just find React in the window and then just start telling it like, hey, have this extra part of the tree. That seems pretty spooky.
It adds a lot of extra dependency management and
right,
makes it more complicated. Yeah.
So yeah, this is also an interesting read, and it sort of goes the other way. So instead of relying on the tried and true backend technology framework thing, like let's go and look at something else. And so the W3C design team decision here was to go and use Craft CMS, which I believe is built on top of Symfony, which is a well-known PHP backend. Now it's funny that the W3C still is hanging on to something so legacy as PHP. I'm totally joking. PHP is great.
Are you joking?
I can't tell. But yeah, it's a funny thing. Like PHP is still out there and it still is fine, but man, WordPress does some weird stuff sometimes.
So hang on. So you said that I'm just skimming this piece right here, which is really interesting because I have done some work with Craft and, believe it or not, WordPress and Drupal throughout my career. So the gist of this is they are picking Craft, you said?
Yes, not WordPress. They're picking Craft.
Interesting. I can definitely understand that Craft is really like a lot of agencies and the small shops really like Craft, myself included. I've been pretty happy with it when I've used it.
Yeah, I've looked at it too. It seems real nice. The fact that I think it's Craft 3 here that's based on Symfony. Symfony gets you a lot of love and a lot of capability because it's kind of like Spring but for PHP. and it gives you a lot of extension points and a lot of developers and engineers who actually know how it works instead of something custom and home rolled.
Interesting. The only other thing I'll say about Craft, well, actually, it's less about Craft and more about this relationship between this design firm and W3C. I think it's actually this is a really interesting model for things. I'm wondering if, for example, this documentation was required as part of the contract, and I find that really fascinating because I think that's really cool, and that means that the W3C is probably a really interesting client. Maybe not necessarily a easy to work with client, but definitely a very interesting client. I'm always interested in kind of the like. Are you all familiar with the concept of like a musician's rider?
I don't watch TV.
Oh no, that's for like live events and stuff.
Yeah. So like basically, I think there's like a really storied one where like I don't remember who it was, but some band was like basically like, oh, if I want only yellow Skittles or only yellow M&Ms, and if they showed up to the place where they were going to perform to the venue, and there weren't M&Ms, the M&Ms were not only the yellow ones, or some other thing indicated that was wrong, they would take that as like a red flag for like they didn't read the contract basically, or they didn't build things to spec.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's always interesting because on technical projects I feel like sometimes there are things like that, not necessarily as gotchas, but as like flags or checkpoints or things that really indicate the culture of the client and the mindset of the client that I think can make this really, really interesting. And I know that's not what this post is about, but it almost kind of is, right? Because I mean, they talk about in this post a little bit about how, like, hey, going with a closed source or even an open source but proprietary.
Open source but licensable.
Yeah, licensable. That's a better phrase for it. Commercial but open source. I haven't read the Orange website take on it, but I'd be interested to see what people thought of that. Maybe I'll click that link after the show. But
in the sidebar, there's also an about Studio 24 section, and so they discuss like why the W3C is the client and who's a part of the team, and some history and stuff.
I do love this, and I love agencies that do this kind of thing. I page through their book because I'm always really interested, coming from an agency background, about how they talk about themselves, and it seems like these folks do a lot of work for the UK government.
It does seem that way.
Which I know we have some things like that here in the US. Some companies that have sprung up particularly to provide services to government, and there's also the US Digital Service, and
Yep.
I can't believe I'm blanking the name on it now, but there's a unit.
18F.
18F, yeah, is a unit that works on projects probably not unlike this that are kind of for broader consumption throughout the federal government, and I find that kind of work really interesting, having not done any of it myself. I don't know. It's a really interesting confluence, and I'll be excited to see where this goes.
The blog post where they decide not choosing WordPress looks quite nice. Like the theme of the website looks a lot more modern than a lot of the W3C stuff that's out there.
I have to wonder if that's not also hosted on the Craft site. Like that this is them, for lack of a better phrase, dog fooding what that site's going to end up looking like. Because this is a very W3C template. I feel like the structure is a very W3C structure.
So if you open the source in the page, you'll see like a Netlify comment at the very bottom.
Yeah.
And it's like, if window Netlify identity, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know.
Yeah, this is Netlify. You're right. But I mean, yeah, it's Jekyll. There's a generator meta tag in there. It's Jekyll.
Yay.
Ew.
Love it.
All the way
Full
down, we
circle.
cracked the code. So I'll say one more thing about this. So way back in the day when I did a lot of MooTools stuff, one of the people on the MooTools team, they're a little, it kind of like freelance Italian agency, like, super tiny, like 2 or 3 people. They got the W3 like contract, I guess, to rebuild a modern HTML validator like tool site.
Yeah.
So remember when everybody actually used to validate their HTML for compliance?
Throwback.
The MooTools team built that.
Very cool.
Too fun.
The days of valid HTML.
I don't even know what those days are like. But you know what I do like to have valid these days?
Yeah?
I like to have valid types in my TypeScript.
Makes sense.
Also, for the audience out there, they call that a segue.
Oh. They don't make those anymore. They don't make segues anymore.
They don't make those anymore because they would always just tip over.
Uh-oh.
So this is a little extension here I have in the show notes. So the extension is supposed to be called TypeScript Explicit Types, but I don't think that does it justice. What it's really doing here is that it's a plugin for VS Code that lets you generate types that presumably are there already, but aren't explicitly there. They're inferred. And so this is a kind of explicit type inserter from that inference. Now, why is this super cool? Well, I don't know if you've been using TypeScript, but there are many places that could be, less ambiguous by actually having an explicit type. That might be a return statement. That might be an actual variable. It could, usually you want to have them in arguments so that you can actually do completion and stuff, and usually you want them in return types. You can do completion and stuff. You don't always need them internally, so it can be some extra noise. So sometimes relying on inference is valuable, but having to type out promise whatever 1 billion times in my backend is just ridiculous. Promise some object flavor here, promise some object flavor there. Just letting inference take care of it would be fine, except I have ESLint turned on that tells me that I should have explicit types. So this generates them for me. So it's a cool little extension. I think he posted, the guy here, Nick Vov. I don't know. Maybe that L is silent. The guy posted it on Reddit, I think. So a different orange site, maybe.
The red site.
Well, it's orange for me for some reason. I don't know if it's the skin I have turned on or not.
Yeah, color temperature. It's a color temperature thing.
Yeah. So incidentally, I think last week is when I found this, and I updated something here. And I was tinkering with it, and I guess I didn't confirm that it fixed, and I should probably go and reply to that issue. But it's a cool little toy, cool little extension. Can anybody on this chat with me identify an issue with this tool?
If it finds incorrect types?
Or
you change the type of something and then you have to update it everywhere?
That's not bad. That's kind of what TypeScript's point is. And
True.
No, a problem with this tool is that it really should be in the TypeScript engine of ESLint or whatever. It should be something that the little fix me pop-up says hey, just fix me. I don't know how to do that. I suggested to Nick that it could either be a part of the VS Code core, because it seems like an obvious feature for the TypeScript engine, and or just part of ESLint.
Yeah, it definitely seems like something you could build in. It should be a first class thing.
Yeah, it's just cool.
Yeah, I'm curious now if WebStorm's TypeScript stuff does this. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I only use one editor, unfortunately, so I think it's very valuable.
And it's WebStorm.
It's not WebStorm. I don't use that one. So I did try it with Nest.js, and I don't know if you guys have looked at Nest, not Next. It has all those crazy annotations, and when I was using this last week, it's been updated quite a few times since then. It was kind of going a little bit crazy with all the annotations, so watch out for that if you try it.
I'll just make one more comment here. It sounds like your ESLint config is making opinions about your code. I've been very much pushing or trying to keep with just the React app preset for ESLint, which is only going to warn you or tell you anything about things that are related to potential bugs or accessibility concerns.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't tinker with anything in the ESLint create React app setup. My reference points are entirely from the Nest backend perspective. The Nest, generator will generate some opinions because they're crazy.
So it's
crazy
ESLint config coming from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's totally default. I could turn it off, but it might be right. It might be nice to actually have real types.
Yeah, well, the last thing you would want is for it to somehow flow through and then, this thing, this endpoint or whatever you're writing returns any. That would be the worst case.
It's funny though, because endpoints effectively do return any, because the client doesn't care what it returns. It's going to get cast to JSON, and then you'll see what it is. It doesn't matter. It may as well be returning void, because under the hood it's express and rest.send.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What type do you use for JSON serializable stuff? Because I've seen a couple different, in like every framework I use or whatever has a slightly different type for it. I recently copied whatever from Puppeteer types because it's basically a JSON thing typed out is an object that has any property that is a string that has the value of the same interface that you're currently defining, so a recursive interface, or what, Boolean number, string, null.
Symbol, maybe?
No, not symbol.
Not
symbol is not JSON serializable.
Yeah, so I typically don't do that because internally it doesn't care. Nest doesn't care.
Yeah.
You think TypeScript would actually just have that type pre-built by now?
Yeah, I would feel like they should. Like the omit helper that was added in TypeScript 3.3 or 3.4.
Oh, there are so many, like all of those very useful helpers. Like I can't believe it took so long.
Yeah.
Those helpers are in fact one of the reasons I argue for keeping things in JavaScript TypeScript land, because those things are so much more descriptive than their counterparts in Java and friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like only in a dynamic language like TypeScript can you really do these like dynamic types that like depend on each other in like negative, subtractive ways. And
well, I mean, you could do it in the Haskells and the MLs, but you couldn't do it in Java because its TypeScript isn't rich enough.
Yeah. Well, we love TypeScript here.
This is very true. I think that might mean it's time for a new Twitter followees, and I'll start.
I believe it is time.
I'll start because I don't actually have any new Twitter followees to share. I have followed some people, but not many of them have anything to do with tech, and I think I've done quite a few followees in a row where I've just shared people that have nothing to do with the content of this podcast. So I figure this time I may as well stay out of it, because you all actually have a lot of cool people to share to. Some of them IRL friends, some of them friends from around the internet, but all of them very cool people. So I'll just turn it over to you guys. Who did you follow this month, Brian?
Well, I was going to say, I think even though you don't have anyone on here, I feel like you have the most thoughts about who we followed.
This is true. I have a lot of respect for all these people that are on your lists. So
this segment is really just impress Brandon.
I mean, well, we call it new Twitter followees, but it's really following people that Brandon already follows. Followees.
Exactly. Yeah.
People Brandon introduced you to in the past month or so.
Pretty much.
Or it's people that Brandon has followed on Twitter for years, and we're just like discovering it on our own. Like most people I follow, it's like, oh, Brandon already follows this.
So maybe what we should do, Brian, is we should just set our timelines to Brandon's account.
Terrifying. Terrifying.us.
Yeah,
the one.
There you go.
Anyway, I'll start here. First up I have is AJ. He's an engineer at Serverless, like the actual framework. Let's see. He chimed in and demoed a couple of things at JavaScript Minnesota last week. I've seen him give a talk at NodeMN and some other places, and I think Brandon knows him personally in some sense. So that's cool.
Can I give an extended shout out to AJ? I'm basically going to give an extended shout out to each of these people that you all have in lieu of having actual followees myself. So yeah, AJ's been the real MVP of finding speakers for Serverless MN. He's been a meetup organizer himself, and I believe it's not going out on a whim to say, even though he doesn't show up on the meetup.com page, he is a organizer of Serverless MN as well, if not literally listed on Meetup. I think even I both feel that he continues to show up for that organization. We really appreciate that. And also AJ is just like the coolest, like sweetest, nicest human, fellow former Northeast Minneapolis resident. Yeah, AJ, thumbs up. He's also my new Twitter followee.
Nice. I've talked to him twice, I think, at Serverless MN, and super nice guy.
Yeah.
Let's see. So next up I have is Erin Fox. I've seen her show up in my feed a few times over the last, year or two or something. She's a software engineer at ConvertKit, like JavaScript, React Native stuff, I think, React stuff. So yeah.
Always good.
Always good. If I start seeing people retweet it a lot in my timeline, there's a good chance I'm going to follow them unless they tweet at really high volumes. So there are a few people I always look out for their tweets because they're only retweeted, but I'm not going to follow them personally because I just can't. I just don't want all that flow.
Makes sense. Aaron works with local tech community awesome person Janessa White at ConvertKit. Both very awesome humans.
And finally is Jen Schiffer, and Brandon, I'll let you just talk because maybe was this in last episode? I don't remember.
Yeah,
That's
it
okay.
Was this?
Jen Schiffer.
Okay, well, I followed her, so hooray.
Jen Schiffer is the only real web developer, as we learned at Deconstruct 2017, 2018. A true icon of the internet. The one and only. Works at Glitch. Super cool human being. Has all of the best tweets.
So the way I know Jen is Brandon quote, which is, what do they say about blogging, Brandon?
Oh yeah, never blog, never tweet. That's words to live by.
Wonderful words.
I don't know where the words were originally, but I just love the words because I agree. Never blog.
It's a very, very old tweet, I believe. Never blog, never tweet. Don't do it. I think coding is a highway is another good one that I reference often because it's true. Coding is a highway. Programming is a highway. And every day is a winding road.
References.
So I guess it's my turn now. I followed a few people who are classics. One of those people is Joe Carlson.
Hey, I know Joe.
Everybody knows Joe. He's at Mongo right now, but he's been elsewhere before. I think he's even been to JavaScript Minnesota on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a funny thing, the reason I followed Joe is because he followed me. And I thought, well, that's weird. I mean, why did he just follow me out of the blue? I didn't TikTok today. And so it turns out because I have TweetDeck, I can actually see the activity that other people I am following are doing. And so I think what he was doing is he was just following everybody in Brandon's timeline.
That seems pretty accurate. I think there's a high crossover between Brandon's timeline and Joe's timeline, maybe.
I mean, he followed like 60 people that day, and it was insane. So.
Oh, wow.
I did not realize how many followers Joe has on Twitter now. He really took being a developer advocate at MongoDB as well as TikTok and kind of has exploded in growth because of that. But I think being a developer advocate, you're going to get a lot of followers anyway because that's kind of your job is to put out content.
Yeah. Good
content regularly and then when you have a company behind you kind of backing you up, it legitimizes it as well. So
yeah, for sure. And it's cool because I think he's actually really good at that role. And so I think this is a good place for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he has a very particular take on developer advocacy that I think has made him quite successful. And definitely like he's one of a very small number of people who on I'm going to be right back. I'll let you guys go through this.
Hi, Tessa.
I'll let you guys go through this and mute my mic.
Bye, dog. So the next person I followed is Nader Dabbit. Now, it's interesting because I thought I followed him already, and apparently I didn't. And then I have one more. I don't know who this person is, but they followed me. So it's Jesse or something. They are an engineer and they do design work and stuff.
And it looks like Brandon follows them as well, so I'm sure he knows about him. So
yeah, I just saw a CC at Brandon MN. So it's all they're all connected, Brian.
Just like this podcast existed because Brandon just started tweeting at us.
Yeah,
out of the blue. We didn't know who he was, and then all of a sudden he's in our mentions all the time.
I still don't know who he is really. So Brian, in our last 30 seconds or so, what are you doing next week or month?
Oh no. I don't know. I'll be watching some more TV. I've been watching Star Trek Lower Decks. It's an amazing show. I've been loving it. It's an animated Star Trek show, which is the first since the original series had an animated Star Trek show. It's quite funny. So I'll be watching more of that as that airs. What else am I doing in the next while? I'm getting bindings on skis right now, so I'm anticipating winter.
Yeah, it's coming up.
I will still be working. I will be doing Hacktoberfest stuff. I'll keep working on my Secret Santa generator, which you can find at github.com/brianmitchell/secret-santa. If you want to get involved and contribute or use it, which is also brianm.me/secret-santa.
Did you get like at Secret Santa on NPM?
No, so this is the website, which is not deployed to NPM.
Just checking.
It's using my library called gift-exchange, and that is released on NPM. So that's where all the matching algorithm is implemented, and then the Secret Santa is just a front end on top of it. So
cool. Yeah, I don't have any specific plans here for October either. It is as you mentioned, getting cooler. All the leaves have changed. People at the beginning of the season thought, "Wow, we're gonna have such a warm fall," and I don't know about that. It seems pretty chilly already.
Yep.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. Nothing too exciting coming up here for me. Just doing work.
It's all we can do these days.
Yeah.
Brandon is back from dog duty, so
Ew.
so where can we find you, Brandon?
You can find me all sorts of places, but predominantly on Twitter, where I'm Brandon_MN, or on Instagram, where I have that same username, and probably some other places, but mostly in and around Northeast Minneapolis, where I'm going on as many walks as possible to beat Brian in the weekly activity challenge.
It's on. I'm still walking today.
With varying degrees of success. Yeah, I mean, you could stay home. Like, just saying, that's another opportunity. I feel like you've earned a break.
I wish. I failed my move goal by 25 calories or less 2 days in a row, which just hurts.
Hey, well, you know,
I sat on the couch too long.
now you've got a tradition going. You could fail it by, like, I don't know, a couple hundred if you want.
Oof.
Just saying.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to go on like a half-hour walk, so.
I relish the, like, 2 hours where I was, like, 2 to 3 activity points ahead of you. That was
we were
great.
neck and neck earlier today.
I go for a long run every Saturday. So long is relative, of course, but I go for a run every day on every Saturday. And so that's always my, like, all right, I might be able to come back from this, from my 300-point debt that I've accrued over the course of the past week.
Maybe next week. You did beat me last week, the week before, so
I felt really good about that.
Even though I lost, I was very proud of you, so congratulations. Officially on PodKit, congratulations to Brandon.
Thanks, bud. Congratulations on your 51 victories against me.
Hey, Ryan, when are you getting an Apple Watch so you can join in on this? Fun.
Approximately in 2021 when the iPhone 13 comes out in 13 months.
There's no way they're going to call it the 13. There's no way they're going to.
It's always the next year's iPhone, Ryan.
Well, I keep waiting for the legendary Type-C and a good iPhone.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Well, where can we find you, Ryan?
Well, you can find me just about everywhere, but especially on my website, ryanmr.com. It's true. It is one of my websites.
Pointed to Google as we discussed last episode.
Yep, you got it.
Google
And of course,
Air
you can
page.
find me on ryanrampersad.com, which is the real website, and on Twitter at ryanmn. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Ryan MN?
It's just like everybody else here on this show. It ends in MN.
Very
That would be
nice.
Ryan MR. You should get Ryan MN now. And just have it be the description of the Twitter account just points to Brandon.
Perfect. I mean, that's really all I follow now.
Brian, wow, I said Brian. I meant
It's
to say
over.
Brandon is Twitter. He's just is our Twitter.
Yep.
Let's see. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/BrianMitchL. You can also find my website, brianm.me. On there is like every other site where I have links, notably like GitHub or Instagram or I think Snapchat, but who uses that anymore? I certainly don't. So yeah, that's me. Let's see. Well, this has been PodKit episode 61. You can find the show notes for this episode at thenexus.tv/pk61. You can discuss this on our subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/thenexustv. Also, our Twitter, which is twitter.com/thenexustv. And if you like what we're doing, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/thenexustv. How do we end the show now?
See you
Bye,
next time.
everybody.
Have a good one.
Yeah, see you next time. Have a good
Bye.
one.
Have a good one.
Oh my god, it's gonna be a pain in the butt to edit. Whatever.
Have a good one. Feel free to end it without me. I have to.
The Nexus
The Nexus TV
podcasts from the Technological Convergence.